you are ready for us to go.
All right, and I have started it.
And I have started as well, so we're going to go ahead and get started now. Thank you for everybody that has joined us so far. I'm really looking forward to sharing the information tonight. And I'm going to start off tonight. I'm going to be covering some new designs and techniques for embroidery machine. And these designs, I actually made them. So we'll go for the next slide. All right. First thing I want to kind of do a little bit of housekeeping. Margaret will be monitoring the Q&A. So as I go through the presentation, if something catches your eye or if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A and we'll talk about that about halfway through. The information today will be on a PowerPoint. It's just easier to make sure we cover all the pieces correctly. And so you'll learn a lot just walking through the PowerPoint with me. A little bit about me. I started my Anna's Awesome Applique design business in 2010. I have over 30 years of hand piecing, hand quilting, and hand applique. And when I learned how to digitize, I thought, how am I going to use this? And the picture here on the slide shows you all the things I've done since 2010 when I started. It's a lot of stuff. But initially I worked with different hand applique artists. I do a royalty agreement with them, and then I take their artwork and transform it for embroidery machines. And it's kind of a win-win because the hand applique artists now have another market for their designs. The people that have embroidery machines tend not to do handwork. So I get the benefit of sharing some beautiful designs from a lot of different artists within my business. And then there are some that I have created myself. The techniques that I'm going to cover tonight, some of the highlights is about precise piecing, precise and accurate piecing. What's really nice about what we're going to learn tonight is that each of the blocks are going to be completely exactly the same because we're piecing in the hoop. Also the designs, which I really think is cool, is that there's only one color thread to piece the design. So you don't have to change threads. You still have all the different thread changes on the machine, but you're just having one thread on the top. I also created some quilting designs. And again, the quilting design is a consistent design. It's digitized, so it's going to stay in the same place each and every time. But then I'm going to share with you the secret of making it pretty on both sides. I really have a pet peeve of having all those little tie-offs on the back. And I went through some learning that I'm going to share with you later today about how to make that quilting look pretty both sides. And what's really fun, and I learned how to do this quick and easy finishing technique that will go into detail here in a minute about how to take your blocks and finish them very quickly. Our webinar obviously is tonight, the February 17th at 8 o'clock. We'll have the opportunity to replay that. So if you know people that have not that this was not a convenient time, emails will be going out starting tomorrow over the next few days about the replay, so they could just register and watch it at their leisure, whatever's convenient time for them. We will have specials that we'll talk about during the course of our session tonight, and the specials are on through next week on the 24th. We'll go into more detail on those. Let me start off with the 3 new designs. So it's like, okay, what did you do in 2020 and 2021 while all the craziness was going on? Well, I created 3 new designs. And one of the things that I did was in the middle of 2020, I decided that my husband and I needed to downsize from a 2-story house to a 1-story house. And I had my friend Donna come over at one point, and she was helping me because it was getting pretty hectic about moving things. And Donna is my inspiration for a lot of things. She's very much involved with the Dallas Quilt Guild and the Plano Quilt Guild. And she always gives me different ideas of how to work my designs for embroidery machines. So she was telling me about this fun and done technique. And basically it means taking your backing fabric and bringing it to the front for your sashing and binding. So the more she talked about it, and she does donate quilts and charity quilts and stuff, she says, yeah, you just make a piece block at the top, add batting, and then the backing fabric, and then she was describing how to put it together. I said, okay. So I played with that, and I'll show you a little bit more what I did with that. But then that same concept, have been playing with the mariner's compass, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could use this fun and done technique as far as assembling the blocks with the mariner's compass. And of course, that worked out really well. And then, of course, I had to push myself a little bit further. The diamond collection is called the diamond collection because the quilting that I created are different shapes of diamond. But my goal or my inspiration for this was to make a modern looking quilts, and you're going to see some different designs that come from this. And it just tickles me that you can create a design with black and gray and a light white or light gray, and then a main color, and then the differences you get. It gives you more of that modern technique look. So a little bit more about the techniques. So piecing in the hoop, as you would imagine, means that you're going to piece every piece that you see in the block on the hoop, and it starts off with in the bright colored scrappy looking quilt. It starts in that one. It starts with the center square, and you just keep going round and round. And then the quilting in the hoop, using that same design up in the upper top, you'll see that the coasters are 4 different coasters, and you just look at the back, and that's the quilting that is incorporated into the coaster when you do the quilting part for the all around the block design. The mariner's compass has the applicate aspect to it, as you can see in the middle lower. I use different fabrics. This happens to be Christmas fabric, and it just turns out so pretty. And but putting those blocks together, I did use the fun and done technique. And then you see the purple. That's just another one of the 5 different designs from the diamond collection. And the way that I position those, they almost look like they're moving outward or you're coming in. It's just a really fun 3D type effect. And all of these are done using the fun and done finishing technique, which we'll talk about here in a minute. All around the block has 4 different blocks in it, and you can tell the 4 from looking at the black and gold one. There are 2 different sizes. The block will finish either at 7 inches square or at 4 3/4. And the 7 inches square is what I use a lot for like placemats or wall hangings or whatnot. And the 4 3/4 are really clever to be used for coasters coasters. Now, when I first started this design, my friend Donna, she says, okay, she explained to me the fun and done and the quilting and all. So I went off and created 4 blocks. And the blue one that's up at the top, I got all that together and I sent her a picture, and she knows that my favorite color is blue. And she says, you know, it looks really good, Anna, and you did really well. However, I'm going to give you a challenge. I said, uh-oh. She says, now do that same design, but make it a scrappy quilt. So believe it or not, the blue one at the top and the scrappy one below are the same exact blocks. It's just that at the top, I was making them 4 different colors. And at the bottom, each piece is just arbitrarily selected. Now, I have to tell you, scrappy is really hard for me. So I actually planned, okay, 2 light pinks, 2 light reds, and 2 different greens. And yeah, I finally got there. And it's amazing how different they look. And depending on what you're looking for, what can actually be done with them. Then Donna created the Christmas looking one, and she put the little flower in the center as a center block to make that be like a I Spy or a feature item. And in this case, she used 2 different backing fabrics, alternating them, and that gives you a whole different look as well. And then the lower right corner, of course, is the placemat and the mug rug that matches it. So this particular design, you can have 4 different fabrics, or you can have 2 alternating fabrics, or you can make it scrappy. It really has a lot of different options. And then just a little bit about the mariner's compass. Again, there are 4 different blocks. You can see the 4 different mariner's compass in the colorful wall hanging in the center upper top there. And then I also designed quilting blocks, which you can see the border blocks and the full compass block as a quilted block as well. So there's lots of different options there, and the 3 different sizes. Now, these are sizes that the block finishes at, and obviously you need to have a hoop that's going to be large enough to do those sizes. But had a lot of fun with doing this one and just selecting different colors as I went. And the diamond collection, this is all 5 different designs for the diamond collection. And they come in 3 different sizes, 7-inch, 9-inch, or 10.5. And again, it just depends on what size hoop that you have that will fit your, that you can do these in. And they also have some corresponding border and corner quilted blocks. But I just love this one because you can see how different it looks, and depending on your fabric, you can get some interesting look and feels, and you can take the 4 blocks and move them around and get a different look. So I just picked out the ones that I thought would have movement and add character and stuff. So I really had fun with that. So let's go ahead and get a little bit into fabric considerations and supply list based on the technique here. I typically use batik because it has a tighter weave. 100% cotton is very nice, but you need to make sure that you do press it with Mary Ellen Best press or equivalent, especially the 100% cotton. And we'll talk a little bit later when I use that as a backing fabric, what I specifically did there. When I, as this example here, for all around the block, this is the placemat cutting instructions. And what I always recommend is once you cut your shapes, put the shapes in a baggie so that you don't lose place of where they go. They can get lost really easily. And so I typically have a baggie for shape 1, a baggie for shape 2, 3, and 4. So I have them in baggies ready to go and have everything cut. Another question that I get a lot is, should I wash the fabric or not? Now, I have to be fully honest with you. I don't wash my fabric. My samples are samples and they never get used in real life. But I always recommend that if you know whatever you're making will eventually get into the washer or dryer, then you should wash it and wash it first before you start. Because there's too many things that could possibly go wrong if you don't do that. On this fun and done technique, one of the things you want to consider is, now that you know that the backing fabric is going to come and be the sashing and the binding between the front block, you want to make sure that the fabric you select is going to have a good contrast or blend or whatever that you're looking for. We'll be using no-show mesh in the hoop. And to give the block a quilted feel, we'll be using a batting like a bamboo or poly cotton blend. I always use like a neutral thread for piecing, one that kind of disappears. My go-to usually is a gray or silver thread. And when we get to do the quilting, you want to consider, is the quilting going to be standing out? Is it going to be a contrast or should it blend? And you always have the same thread color in the top and in the bobbin when we get to the quilting part. A little bit about my instructions and how I lay things out. And there's always room for improvement, but I hope to have all the information that everybody needs, and I do have testers. The first thing I want to mention is the picture of the applique block. While these are pieced in the hoop, the concept is still the same. You need to know what shape is what number. And in this case, for all around the block, shape number 1 is that center square. Then shape number 2, which are 4 triangles, are the blue. And shape number 3 is the green, and the shape number 4 is the yellow. And so if you take a look at the table where it has the number 2, you can see that it gives you instructions of what to cut for each shape. And also if you're doing the 7-inch finished block or the 4 3/4, because you'll have 2 different columns there to be smaller. And for those shapes 2, 3, and 4, you're going to cut a square and then you're going to cut it on the diagonal to get your triangles. So it's pretty straightforward from that perspective. The stitch order, then we're looking at the place where it says number 3 and we see the stitch orders. The numbers that you see here, the 1- placement stitches, 2- basting stitch, 3- guide stitch, and so forth. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so forth actually align to your color changes on your machine. So if you get lost and not sure which step you're on in the instructions, all you need to do is see what color change you are on your machine. And if it says number 5, then you know, oh, I'm doing the seam stitch for 2A. So all that will come more clearly here in a minute when we walk through how that works. But it gives you a good place of how to read the instructions and how it corresponds to what's actually happening in the on the machine and on the hoop. And the basic sequence for piecing in the hoop, it's similar to like paper piecing, but now you get to do it in the hoop, and it's very accurate that way, is you're going to have guide stitches where you're going to place your fabric to align to those guide stitches. And then once they align, the next thing you're going to do is seam stitch. So you're going to sew it down. While the machine is sewing it down, you're pressing the go button. But basically, you're going to repeat the pattern of guide stitches and seam stitches for every shape of the fabric. So let's get started a little bit here exactly how that works. So you're going to load the design, and it's pretty straightforward loading the design on your machine. You're going to put the no-show mesh stabilizer in the hoop. You're going to stitch out a placement stitch on top of that no-show mesh. And then you're going to take your batting and you're going to center it over those placement stitches. And that's pretty straightforward. Then step number 2, which is corresponds to the instructions, is going to base the embroidery batting to the no-show mesh, as you can see in step 2 on the picture there. You're going to remove the hoop from the embroidery unit and trim that batting and return the hoop to the embroidery unit. I trim it at this point because I actually, as we progress through these steps, I want that batting just to be a smidgen smaller than the final block, so it does that the thickness of the batting does not fight with the thickness of the block. So of the fabric that we're going to sew against. So that's why you need to trim it now. Okay, so now we're moving on to step 3. We've got the batting trimmed, and we're going to do the very first guide stitch. This guide stitch is a center block. For this particular design, we're always going to have that center block, the first step being the center block. And we're going to take our purple fabric, step number 4, and we're going to, after we put down, do the guide stitch, we're going to then place our purple fabric, which is our center square, and do that the fabric right side up. This is always, the very first one is always right side up. All the subsequent fabric will be right side down. It's going to be pretty apparent here in a minute why we do that. So we have step 3 is our guide stitch for that purple square in the center. We will lay it down. Step 4 is going to do the guide stitches for the 2 orange triangles that we're going to be adding. Step 5 is going to sew down the first triangle. And then step 6, we're going to get ready to sew down the second triangle. And once we sew those 2 down, what we want to do is carefully remove the hoop from the embroidery unit and press it, take it to an ironing surface and press those open. And then we're going to return the hoop. Now, you want to keep everything intact. It's just moving the hoop from one point to another. So keep repeating that process. We're going to continue that same logic. We do the guide stitches for the next 2 orange triangles, and then we're going to put the fabric right side down, and we'll do the seam stitch for the 3rd orange triangle, and then which is step 8, and then step 9, we're going to do the seam stitch for the 4th orange triangle. And again, we remove it, and we're going to press it open. Now, this is a time that you need to think, do I want to trim those ears? There's a couple of, I chose not to in this case because I know I'm going to use a dark purple. Obviously, if you're going to use a fabric that has that's more translucent or which it would show up, you'd want to trim the ears at this point as well. But we're going to leave it that the way it is. All righty. And we're going to continue now with the next set of triangles. In this case, I've decided to use just 2 different color fabrics. I could have used 4, but I was doing this placement and I decided just the 2. So we're going to repeat that purple color in the next set of instructions. So again, we're going to do the guide stitches. Then we're going to place our purple triangles on top, lining up with the guide stitch, and stitch out the very first one, seam it, do the seam stitch, and then again line up the second purple one and do the seam stitches for that one. So as we repeat the process of removing the hoop from the embroidery machine and pressing that open. Okay, and again, we're going to repeat that for the opposite purple triangles that are all part of number 3. We'll again put the guide stitches, stitch it down, stitch out the second one, and remove it and press it open. Again, think about if you need to trim the ears, if it's going to go show through or not. That's totally up to you at this point. And then last but not least, we do the orange one and do the same thing. We just flip them and flip them. The important part for each one of these steps is to make sure that you're not only lining up with the guide stitch, but you're centering those triangles. You don't want them to be offset. You want them to be exactly centered. So that would be how that would work. And it'll end up pressing open all the orange triangles. So we got these two, and then we'll finish up the last ones. Now, once you finish up all the orange triangles, the last thing that's going to occur before we start the quilting is going to be the tack down stitches. It's going to tack down all the way around the block. And at this point, we're getting ready to remove the hoop from the embroidery unit and get it ready for quilting. So we're going to put that hoop face down. We're going to take our backing fabric and we're going to just lay it on top of the hoop. Then we're going to flip open one side, as you can see in the third picture on the top row, where I can just eyeball that backing fabric is pretty much centered top and bottom from what I can see of the block. I do the same thing in the horizontal. Then I'm going to temporarily pin that backing fabric top and bottom so it doesn't move on me when I flip over my hoop. Once I flip over my hoop, I'm going to pin the 4 corners to secure that backing fabric. And before I go back to the embroidery unit, I want to remove those 2 backing pins before I start my quilting. And at this point, your last step for this particular block would be to stitch out the quilting stitches as you see here. At this point, you don't do anything else. You're done with this step, and we'll talk a little bit later how to go ahead and trim that. But this block is actually done at that point. Yay. So I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of the different designs while we just learned about walking through the process. The Mariner's Compass has got applique in the hoop, pieced fabric, and quilting. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail on that. Again, it's the 4 different blocks, and they have quilted borders and corners and full blocks as well. There's lots of projects you can make with these. There's information about wall hanging, table runner, placemat, pillow, and tote bag. The quilted blocks, as you see here, you can see the quilted blocks in the gold here, the full block and the border block. And then on the middle design, you can see the corner blocks. What I wanted to point out to you as far as quilting of the actual block that has the compass is that there are parts of the satin stitch that actually comes all the way through, and that becomes your quilting for the compass blocks. You're not going to get separate single stitch quilting. It is actually part of the satin stitch that will go all the way through, and the instructions are really clear how to do that. I just wanted to show a little bit more about the different compass blocks. The other thing about the compass blocks that you may have noticed is that you can make the larger blades 2 different colors. So there's instructions about pre-sewing 2 strips together and preparing them to be laid down as part of the design. There are also alignment stitches if you decide to use 2 different fabrics that can be stitched on your design, so you can align those centers really well. And basically, overall, your basic applique technique, which we're probably all familiar with, is you're going to get a placement stitch so you know where to put your applique fabric. You're going to secure the applique fabric with a tack down stitch. Then you're going to trim the applique fabric, and then you're going to come back and have the satin stitch. And that's pretty standard structure and format. The compass design actually also has cut files with it. So you can actually pre-cut all of these blades from the compass ahead of time, as I'm showing you in the lower right corner, left corner. And then as you can see in the lower right corner, I've just got them all lined up, ready to be pressed into the placement stitches. So the benefit of having a cut file is that you're going to use your placement stitches where you're going to press in that cut shape. The tack down is optional. I usually go ahead and do that because it's just another mechanism to secure the fabric. And if for some reason the cut shape needs to be trimmed a little bit, you still have that option to trim it because the tack down stitch will be there, because sometimes they move a little bit on you. But other than that, it's a really quick and easy way to get all those shapes trimmed or cut and then placed into the placement stitches. And then it'll come back and do the satin stitch. So the Mariner's Compass does have cut files. My diamond collection, this is the exciting one for me. I mean, they're all exciting. You do start with one and then it keeps growing. The thing that's unique about the diamond collection, not only is it piecing in the hoop and quilting in the hoop, but as you can see, there are, for blocks number 1 and 3, there's going to be a template, because that big centerpiece is more of a template where the other pieces are cut strips of fabric. The other thing that's different about the diamond collection, where the other two, you just stitch out a block and you're done, you really need to stitch out 4 blocks of any given block that you like, and then you could arrange those blocks in any way you want to make your design. So one block is just, you know, the center one block there doesn't give you enough of the design. You need to stitch out 4 to give you the fuller design. Okay. There's a lot of projects that are listed in the diamond collection. The wall hangings obviously are there. The table runner and the placemat to the far right. I made a tote bag out of a couple of designs, and then I also did the pillow. So there's lots of different options. And what's really nice is since they are finished with the technique, you're just sewing finished pieces together and it turns out beautiful. Okay. The one thing I wanted to talk about is the quilting technique. Now, this took me a while to get through to my head. I've heard different people say different things, and I'm not, okay, I think I understand. And I even talked with my long arm quilter, Richard Larson, in here in the Dallas area, because I really, really wanted it to look nice. And so he walked me through some things. I figured out how to do it on the machine. I'm going to share with you how to do that. And he says, this method, you're simulating what people do on a long arm. I said, okay, that's what I want, because I want it pretty on the front as it is on the back. The key thing is, for us that have the embroidery machines that automatically trim, we want to turn off or disable the trim command. We don't want it to automatically trim. We're going to manipulate that. So this, by disabling the trim command, it's going to reduce that bulk of threads and tie-offs on the back of the design. And I'm going to walk you through how that does that. We're going to pull the top thread and bobbin thread to the top, and we're going to hold them together. We're going to start the quilting, pause to trim, and then finish the quilting segment. So that in a high level is what we're going to do. And I'm going to walk through a little bit of that, but you can see how pretty it looks. It's very, very nice. So this set of instructions is kind of the secret step-by-step gory detail, but I'm going to walk you through at high level. First, we're going to with holding the top thread, we're going to bring the needle down and needle up, and then that's going to pull up the bobbin thread. And you can see the bobbin thread is right there underneath the foot where I've got the little red square around it. So we're going to pull that, and we're going to have both the top thread and the bobbin thread at the same distance away from the foot. Then we're going to initiate the quilting, and we're going to let it go for about an inch or so. And if you're looking at the picture B, you can see where I have my little snippets, and I'm now trimming those top 2 threads where I was holding them. The tie, the knot or the tie off is still there. We're just now manually cutting the threads. So I've already taken care of 2 of the 4 threads that would have been at the bottom if I had used my trim command feature. So I'm trimming or cutting the top 2 threads, and I'm going to let it continue to quilt that segment. Now, here's another thing that the see is going to be hard to see, but the concept is this. Once you do your first one and your first stitching of the quilting design, and you come back to do the next one, you're going to clip the top thread from the last one it finished, and you're going to pull that out, that like you normally do. You would hold it off to the side. When you put your needle down and needle back up to pull up the bobbin thread, at that point, the bobbin thread is actually a loop because it's still connected to the bobbin and to the underside of your block. So if you keep pulling your top thread, you can't get hold, you're not pulling that bobbin thread at all. So what you need to do is put your finger on top of the spool, the top spool, so that there's no thread pulling there, and then you pull on the top thread, and that will pull up your bobbin thread. It's very easy once you keep doing it. You just have to realize that that bobbin thread is a loop, and you have to get enough tension to pull it up, and then make it as long as you need to hold your bobbin thread and top thread for the next section. So it's just a repeating of that. What's really cool about this, though, is at the very end, picture or number 1, that is your last trim that you need to do of your top thread. And on the back side, all you have is 1 thread that you're trimming, instead of usually there would have been 4 if you kept that trim command on. And it makes it a very clean way to do the quilting. You also need to remember, though, that as you take your hoop off of your embroidery machine, that bobbin thread is still connected. So remember to trim that really quick first. I have actually taken my whole hoop and take it to the table next to me, and that bobbin thread still following me. So you do need to remember to trim that, but it goes pretty quick that way. All righty, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the designs that I've done with these 3 designs. The all-around the block project ideas. My friend Donna, looking at the picture on your left, lower left, she found these cute little designs that she put into the center of the block and then build around them. So this is a great I Spy type quilt, and it was a lot of fun. She used lots of bright colors. To the right, I had an opportunity for a couple of different events to make the little coasters and add names to people, for people to have their own personal coaster. The middle one, which is a bright colored one, that's a perfect size for a baby quilt. And of course, the placemats that we've been talking about, but your imagination is just your only limitation. These are quick and easy little designs to do. Okay, hang on a minute. Yep, I'm ready. So now just a little bit of the, before we get started on the specials, let me go back here. Margaret, are there some questions that we want to talk about?
You know what, Anna, you have them so enthralled. There's only 2 questions at this time. I'm sure more will come in and we can take those later in the webinar. But the first question is, do you pre-shrink the well, you know what, before I say that, I have to tell you, this webinar has been fabulous. The way you presented it, the instructions, and I love the screenshot of the instructions you include with your designs. It all seems like it's going to be so easy for everybody to do. So thank you for doing a great presentation. I know everybody is really loving it.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me ask you those 2 questions that have come in so far. And again, I think it's because they're just so enthralled in taking in everything you're presenting. Do you pre-shrink the no-show mesh stabilizer?
I have not ever done that. I just use it straight off the roll. I had not even heard that that would even be possible.
Okay. And will we be able to watch a replay of this?
Absolutely. There will be emails going out. Please share them with your friends that may not be able to make tonight. The replay will go for, I think, 5 days, and please join that replay, or share it with anybody that you think would be interested in it. Yes, definitely.
Okay, now another question just came in, and Wendy says, how do you connect the blocks together?
That's coming up.
All right, we'll just keep them in suspense about the rest for a little while. So go ahead and show them what great things you have to offer for this
Yeah.
webinar.
Alrighty. So I was really excited to, pull all this together. I actually, so I thought, well, gee, what are the different ways that I could present this? And I'm going to show you with there's 3 different options, and there's all kinds of good stuff that goes with each one of them. So option 1, it'll be 10% discount for one design. And you can see in the little chart here, depending on if you're looking at the all around the block, the Mariners Compass, or the Diamond Collection, you can see what the price would be for 10%. Now the chart shows for download only. All my designs on my website, you have the option to download or to physically ship. When you physically ship, each of the designs will have its own USB with a charm. So you can see the charms over there to the lower right corner. And so for if you decide to buy one, then you get is $5 per charm per pattern. I also have a step-by-step video to make the placemat. So I go into much more gory detail than we just did here. And that's available for $20. It's also all these specials. All you have to do is go to my website, which is at the lower right corner here, annasawesomeappliquedesigns.com. And at the home page, there will be a link there to go to webinar specials, and you'll see all of these things that we're talking about here. But yeah, there is a video that you could always select, and any one of these combination or any one of these is 10% off. Well, okay, then if these are 10% off and you just buy one, what can you do if you buy 2? Option number 2 is that there's 2 designs out of the 3 that you like. You get 20% off. Yay! So you can see the savings that you get with the 20% off. And again, these prices in the table are for the download only. If you would like to have a design on the USB with a little charm, that'll be an extra $5 for each design, and the shipping and also shipping. And again, you have the option here to purchase that all around the block placemat step-by-step video class. So here we go. The next option. Option 3, yay! Wow, this is the best one ever, because option 3 means 30% off of everything. And again, it'll be $5 per pattern for the thumb drive plus shipping. But guess what? That video now is included into your purchase for all 3. So that's a pretty cool solution there. Like you can't go wrong with having a video that you can stop and start whenever you want to. So I just wanted to share all that. And now we're going to go on. Any questions before we go on, Margaret?
Well, we had a really nice comment. I have to tell you, I love the idea of the video. I learned very, very well from video. So I think that the video on that is going to be great. And just to clarify, you'll ship the designs, but they will download the video. Is that correct?
That is correct. The video is purely download only. And if the designs, if you choose to have them on a USB with a charm, and they'd be $5 each for each design. But the video is definitely download only. Yeah. Thank you.
And Laura commented, she said that she loves the USB and the charms because it makes them so easy to find. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, because all my USBs, I have to put them in the computer to find out what's on them. So that's a great idea, Anna.
Yeah, that's when back in 2016, before 2016, I had everything on a CD. And then when I listened to both the people that come to the shows and to the store owners, it's like what I kept hearing is, first of all, not everybody has a CD drive in the newer machines. It's always a pain to kind of take that CD and then put the information on a thumb drive. A lot of the store owners, they used to do that. They usually do that for their customers because it's not always an easy thing to do. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to switch from CDs to thumb drives, what are my things that, what would I want to have for me? And it's like, okay, the last thing I need is a drawer full of thumb drives without any idea what they are. So I make them colorful. I get a charm, and the back side of the charm will have the name of the design on it. So I just felt it was the most logical thing to do, and people would appreciate that. And they do. Yay.
All right, so share all your other information, and I'm going to mute myself here.
All righty. So now we're going to go ahead and learn about the fun and done method. First, we're going to trim each block, and then we're going to learn how to put those blocks together. So at a very high level, the key thing to remember is regardless of the size of the block, and that when I say the size of the block, that's the inside block here, the part that's on the top, the backing fabric will always be 1 inch larger than that inside block. And that means if you're dealing with a 7-inch block, you'll have a 9-inch backing fabric, so 1 inch all the way around. As I've repeated or said already before, the backing fabric will become the sashing and the binding for the project. So keep that in mind when you select your fabric. Make sure you like the contrast or the combination of that. So the key thing here is you do not want to cut your backing fabric. So the first thing you can do is turn the block over and push that backing fabric as far back from that tack down stitch that you just did all the way around. You want to make sure it's clear. You're going to flip it back over to the front side, and you're going to align your ruler just to the outside edge of those tack down stitches. You do not want to cut the tack down stitches. And then you're going to trim that side. So that takes care of that exit fabric the last pieces of fabric and the no-show mesh. So that's trimming away in one fell swoop that side. You're going to repeat that. And I like to do one side and then I do the opposite side, and then I rotate it and do the same thing top and bottom. So you're going to repeat that same thing. You're going to push that fabric all the way back, the backing fabric. You're going to flip it back over, make sure that it's still in the back because you do not want to trim that at all or have that cut at this stage. And again, you line your ruler up to the edge of that just to smidge over the tack down stitch. You don't want to cut that tack down stitch, and you do that side. You're going to do the same thing with top and bottom, and you'll end up with a block that looks like the one in the middle here. You have the backing fabric hasn't been trimmed, but the inside block has been trimmed. Now to trim the backing fabric, it's really, really easy. All you have to do is put your ruler, your 1-inch mark ruler, and you can see that in the red blocks up there. You're lining it up on the right and top tack down stitches. So you're cutting 1 inch from that outside edge of the block. You trim that, rotate your block around, and do it again. Line up on your 1-inch mark. So now you have a trimmed block. There's a little bit more work you want to do before you do this. This is where Mary Ellen Best Press is your friend, especially in this case where the backing fabric was 100% cotton. And what I do is I actually saturate that 1-inch backing fabric, because the reason I do that, I want to make sure it's nice and stiff, and I'll let it dry so that when I start to press it, I know it's going to have a crisp seam or crisp crease. I used to know how to talk. That this fold edge is going to be very crisp for me. That's going to be your sashing, and you want that to look pretty. So you're going to, once you have that, the Mary Ellen dried, you want to press your top and bottom fabrics all the way over, the backing fabric over, and then you rotate your block 90 degrees and do the other two sides. The reason why you're doing this is that you're establishing the crease that you're going to pin these blocks together with. Okay, I'm going to do that next. Because this is a sample of creating the placemat, and just for efficiency's sake, I put my blocks in 2 rows of 3 because I know that's how many blocks I need for the placemat. And just to keep it nice and easy, instead of just pinning one block to the first one and coming back and pinning that next block to the next one, I use the center block and I'm pinning to both outside blocks to it. And what's key here is you're going to line up your blocks, and on that crease, you're pinning that crease from top to bottom. So that's the purpose of that crease. You want to make sure you're pinning all the way through both layers and pinning them together, and you're not catching anything of the block itself. You're just pinning the backing fabric, and you're going to sew from top to bottom where you have those pins. And I usually put this many pins because I want to make sure I'm staying on that crease when I stitch that. Once you stitch that in your upper right corner, you come back to your ironing board and you're going to press those 2 open now. You know, that's the sashing that came from the back. Then you're going to take the first fold or the top one and you're going to fold it in half. And I find, this is where Donna said, oh, Anna, you're going to appreciate me telling you this. I find it's better to pin those in shape, you know, fold that first flange in half, just underneath the edge of the block, pin that down, and then take my hot iron and remove the pins as I go while I'm pressing that. If you do it the old-fashioned way, like I was doing it, trying to hold it down with my fingers, that fabric gets really, really hot and it starts moving on you. This way, you got it pinned and you're not even touching the hot fabric. It's just slowly getting pressed as you come across. So that's one. So you're just at this point, you're folding it in half just underneath the seam. The next one is you take that same folded fabric and you're going to fold it over one more time. So now it's covering the block itself. And again, you're pinning in place and you're going to press. Now, and then I turn my blocks around and now I'm working on the flange that I haven't worked on yet. Now, when you start to fold this one in half, you're going to notice that you're actually pinning on top of the one that you just finished folding. That's fine. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. And you're going to pin it all the way across and press that seam and fold that one over one more time. So you're going to repeat that process. At this point, you have both of those sashing pieces folded over twice, and you're going to press that down really smooth. And once you do that final open press, you're going to then, on step number 2 here on the screen, is you're going to pin it down so that you can do the top stitching. And you're going to top stitch on either side of that sashing that you've just pinned down. So basically it's fold over halfway, fold over again, and press each time on both sides. And then you're going to pin it so that you can do the top stitch. And that's putting the block together. Pretty quick and easy. So once you do that for the rows, you're going to do the same process for connecting the rows. Now, the little secret here is you want to go ahead and repeat the folding that edge fabric over just to make sure everything is so I can't say that word tonight. All right, nice and clear. What you want to do on step number 2 here, just like you do any other piecing of blocks, you want to make sure that your intersections are going to meet. So you want to make sure that where they meet, you line them up very nicely and you pin the intersections first. And then I pin the outside edges, and then I go ahead and pin all across that crease that I just ironed in there. And again, you're going to sew from end to end that whole line for putting the 2 rows together. Again, you're going to repeat that same process that we did with the single blocks. You're going to now do that for the whole length of that row. So you've been putting rows together, and now you did blocks together, now you're doing rows together. You're going to press that open. Because where the sashing comes together, it's a little bit thicker, I tend to pin there first, but I still follow the same principle. You're pinning in half, you're folding in half and pinning it, and then you're going to press it down. And again, you're going to repeat that, fold it a second time, pin it down, press it, press those two sides open or down like we're seeing here in the picture, and then you're going to pin everything for a top stitch. So it's an easy, repeatable process for each one. And then now, okay, so we've got the inside of the placemat done. We've got all the blocks together, got everything tacked top stitched, as you can see. Now it's the finishing the binding. At this point, you have that 1 inch all the way around the remaining edges, and you're going to repeat that same principle. Again, I like to do the where the intersections are first because they're a little thicker, so I pin those first, as you can see in the upper right corner, and then I fold that in half, pin that, press it down, and come back and fold it a second time to go over the block and press that down. Now the trick here is you're going to see here that I've pinned top and bottom that binding down, but I've left it open a little bit on the blocks on either side. And the reason for that is you're going to do the same thing on either side, but in order to do the miter corner, you need a little bit of fudge or some room to work with. So you're going to repeat that folding mechanism on the other two sides. And now we're going to get ready to do the mitered corner. So at this point, you'd have all the sides folded over twice, and they got a nice crease in them. And this is why we did that Mary Ellen Best press, because without that Mary Ellen Best press, it wouldn't be as sharp as a fold as we want it to be. But now the mitered corner, you're first going to, in this orientation, you're going to finish pinning across the top of that binding. Then you're going to take that piece of fabric that's off to the side, to the left side, and fold that at a 45-degree angle, which is shown in step number 2. And then you're going to see that fold that's in step number 2, where that side of the binding has been folded or pressed. You're going to use that as a mechanism to fold over that first fold that you would normally do. And you can see step 3 that's folded over. And then step number 4, you're going to bring it all the way over. So you're going to continue following that same principle. You're just going to put a mitered corner for each one of those, and you're going to pin, and then you come back and do the top stitching. So that's really pretty quick and easy. It's really amazing to me how doing something like this, you can get a placemat and get everything done and do your top stitching, and you didn't have to go to create more binding. You didn't have to do anything but just use what you already have. So the completed placemat would look like that. As I mentioned, that the video class has all the, goes through all the detail steps. It's all videoed. So if you were interested in seeing that or purchasing that, we already showed you the options. Everything is through the website, and it's awesomeappliquedesigns.com. You just go to that home page and I'll have the link to the specials. And I just want to talk to you a little bit more about me. You also have the option, if you want to sign up for my free member area. I do a monthly Facebook Live video. I give a pattern away at the end of the month. There's always, and then that same pattern becomes a sale item for the following month. But you're more than welcome to join that. In the free member area, I have several technique videos that cover the appliquing the hoop, quilting the hoop, multiple hoopings, trapunto stitches, joining strip method, which is a different than the fun and done, and cut file process, how to create cut files from your cutting machine. Plus there's also 2 designs, and you'll also get on my newsletter where I'll have announcement of sales, webinars, any quote shows I'll be going to, or anything of that nature. As you can see from this picture, I have a wide variety of different designs, and that a lot of that is because I work with multiple different artists that have their different creative designs with that. And just a reminder then, again, option 1 is a 10% off of just one of the designs, whichever one catches your eye, and just an additional $5 per design for a USB if you would like that with a charm. And if you do, that'll be the shipping one. The cost on the table is for the download only. And then you can get that additional video all around the block to make that placement, and that's only $20. Option number 2, you pick out two of the favorites, and you get the different savings that you see here. And again, you can have an additional $20 for the video if you wish to have it shipped, you just for the thumb drives, it's $5 per design plus the shipping. And last but not least, option 3 is the best deal ever, because you get 3 at 30% off, and you include that video all around the block. And if you choose to do the thumb drives, that'll just be $5 additional for each design plus shipping. And do we have any more questions? I think we're getting close to the top of the hour here.
We do have a few, thank you. Laura, let's see. Anita said, do you have any upcoming in-person shows in the Dallas area?
Yeah, the Dallas Quote Show, which will be at Market Hall on March 11th through 13th, I will be there.
Excellent. Okay, and then could you just clarify for Karen, and there's others, I'm sure, if you order the thumb drive, will you still get the download?
You'll get the download for the video if you choose to if you're doing option 3, but the thumb drive, no, you only have the option of either the thumb drive or the download, not both.
Right, because you don't really need them both. They're the same thing. It's just the
Yeah,
video is
exactly.
downloadable. And yeah. Okay. Jennifer says your fabric is so beautiful. Where's your favorite place to purchase your fabric?
Okay, so full confession, I've been working with Hoffman Fabrics in California for probably about 6 or 7 years. And as a designer, I get to sometimes select what the fabrics I have, and that's what I showcase in my designs. And all of these are Hoffman fabrics.
Excellent. And Elizabeth said she came in late, but this is fabulous. She can't wait to watch the replay and see the whole thing.
Okay.
And Joanne Banco said, no question, just want to say great webinar, Anna. So nice to see you here.
That is so sweet of her. Thank you.
So that's all we have. You did a beautiful job explaining everything. So what a fabulous webinar. I'll be quiet and you can finish up here.
Well, I really, really appreciate everybody coming and joining us today. If you have, I'm looking to probably do more webinars in the future. Would that be something that people would like? Or just respond to the Q&A if that's something that, and in fact, I'm thinking that the Halloween design that we're showcasing, my daughter and I are showcasing in Dallas Quote Show, we might do a webinar on that. That'd be a lot of fun, maybe.
Well, in answer to the Halloween one, they said yes, 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 yes.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. So they might be typing in yeses for the other one too. I'm not sure.
Good, good. Well, I'm really excited about how this worked out. I'm kind of new to this, but I'm really excited and looking forward to doing more. And please take time to join the free member area on my website. You'll get a lot of great things and be informed of where I'm going and what I'm doing. And of course, participate in that Facebook free pattern giveaway that I do monthly. Thank you all very, very much for joining, and I'll look forward to hearing from you or seeing you in the near future. Thank you very much.